If you take a life, you should spend the rest of your life in prison. That's what I would like to see happen. If you murder someone, you should spend the rest of your life in prison. Not get under 20 years, not get 30 years. You should spend the rest of your life in prison, because our loved ones, they're not coming back. And you shouldn't come back to the street either.
In the early hours of June 26, 2025, a shocking act of violence would unfold that no one saw coming. A man would kill his girlfriend's entire family after finding out she's dating his buddy. At around 1:30 a.m., the Chicago Police Department rushed to a frantic 911 call reporting a fire in the Austin neighborhood. When they arrived at 5222 West North Avenue, they were met with a scene unlike anything they could have imagined. The building was engulfed in flames, but what made the tragedy even more horrifying was the discovery that this was no accident. It was an act of cold-blooded arson. As the fire department battled the blaze, police began to connect the dots. But what they uncovered next would leave them speechless. This wasn't just an attack on a family. It was a deliberate act of revenge. A man, consumed by rage, had planned to kill his girlfriend's entire family because she had moved on and started dating his buddy. In fact, cases like this echo many of the stories we've covered before. Do you remember the case of a 31-year-old Robert Payne, a husband who killed his entire family, then himself, all because he was lied to? If you have not watched this, I will leave the link at the end of this video. Now let's look at the tragic life and death of this quadruple Austin murder.
The monster who did this has got to be dealt with. We're going to work with the police. We're going to do all that we can.
76-year-old Brad Cummings was a cherished figure in Chicago's Austin neighborhood, a community he had worked tirelessly to serve for decades. As the editor of The Voice, a long-running community newspaper, Brad used his platform to amplify the voices of marginalized individuals in the West Side. His unwavering commitment to social justice and advocacy for the underserved made him a beloved member of the community. He lived alone in the 24-unit apartment building at 5222 West North Avenue, a place he had called home for more than 10 years. Sadly, that would be the same apartment he would tragically lose his life. Brad's death, which came unexpectedly, left a gaping hole not just in his neighborhood, but in the larger fabric of the community he had nurtured. His life was a testament to the power of local journalism and the importance of using one's voice to fight for justice. And his passing left those who knew him wondering how they would continue the fight he had started. As the community grappled with the loss of one of its most dedicated members, another tragedy was unfolding within the same walls of the apartment building. On the night of the fire, 32-year-old Regina Henry, a devoted mother, was living in the same apartment building as her family, including her 5-year-old son Jason Henry and her younger sister Destiny Henry. Regina had recently discovered she was pregnant with her third child, a happy occasion that was quickly overshadowed by the events that would unfold later that night. But what happened next would change the course of their lives forever. Described by friends and family as selfless and nurturing, Regina worked in retail and was always the one to put the needs of others before her own. Despite the hardships life had thrown her way, she remained a constant pillar of strength for her family. But that strength would be tested in a way no one could have imagined. Her peaceful, quiet life came to a tragic end, and her death left everyone who knew her in disbelief. Regina's death in the same fire that claimed Brad's life highlighted a deeply troubling pattern of violence that continued to shatter the lives of innocent people, with the ripple effect extending far beyond the immediate family. But there was one act of heroism that would soon rise above the tragedy. Regina's younger sister, Destiny Henry, was just 28 years old when she tragically lost her life in the same fire. A dedicated mother to her 4-year-old son, Kyle Henry, Destiny had always been the glue that held her family together. She had lived in the apartment building most of her life and was known for her self-sacrificing nature and her unflinching devotion to her loved ones. On the night of the fire, Destiny's final act was one of pure bravery. She attempted to rush back into the inferno to save her son, unaware that he had already been rescued. Sadly, she did not make it out. Destiny's heroism made headlines, but her tragic end served as a reminder of the sacrifices mothers make for their children. As Destiny's family mourned her loss, they also held on to the memory of her bravery and the strength she showed even in her final moments, a final act that would forever define her legacy. Destiny had lived in the neighborhood for most of her life and was known locally for being supportive and attentive to her community. But the community's heartbreak was only just beginning. In a heartbreaking twist, 5-year-old Jason Henry, Regina's son, also lost his life in the fire. Known for his boundless energy and love of play, Jason's death was felt profoundly by all who knew him. He had no involvement in the dispute that caused the fire and was simply an innocent child in the wrong place at the wrong time. His death, at such a young age, left an emotional scar on his surviving family members and the entire community. Jason's innocence was cruelly stolen by a fire set with intent. That fateful night, what seemed like a simple dispute would soon escalate into an inferno that claimed the lives of many, including Jason's. But the truth behind the fire was far darker than anyone could have guessed. On the early morning of June 26, 2025, at approximately 1:30 a.m., disaster struck the 5222 West North Avenue apartment building located in the Austin neighborhood of Chicago. The fire began swiftly, engulfing the building within minutes. The 24-unit apartment complex, a 3-story brick structure, housed a diverse group of residents, including elderly tenants, working-class families, and single parents. But what the residents didn't know was that their safe haven, the very place they called home, was about to become a death trap, one they couldn't escape. The building was typical for the Austin neighborhood, a densely populated area known for its tight-knit social networks and active church communities. Despite economic hardships, Austin had long been home to many families and was a cultural hub for the community. The apartment complex, like many in the area, was affordable, and although it provided a central courtyard and stairwells for its residents, it lacked a critical fire safety feature, a sprinkler system. This fact would later play a significant role in the spread of the fire and the devastating loss of life that followed. The fire would soon spread rapidly, consuming the entire building and trapping people inside. Without a sprinkler system, the flames spread unchecked, making it almost impossible for residents to escape. And what happened next would haunt the survivors forever. The building's central stairwells, which normally served as a safe route for evacuation, quickly became death traps as the fire consumed them. With exits blocked and escape routes cut off, many residents had no choice but to try to escape through windows or shelter in place, hoping for a miracle. But help was on the way, and a race against time had begun. The police were alerted to the fire at 1:30 a.m., and first responders quickly arrived at the scene. Firefighters worked tirelessly to rescue residents, pulling several people out of windows and off fire escapes. Among those rescued was 4-year-old Kyle Henry, who was unconscious, but transported to the hospital in critical condition. But not everyone would make it out. By the early morning, 3 bodies had been recovered: Brad Cummings, Regina Henry, and Jason Henry. Destiny Henry's body was found later under heavy debris after she had entered the building to rescue her son. But the investigation was only starting, and the truth was more shocking. At the time, the fire was considered suspicious due to its rapid spread and the multiple ignition points. Investigators began looking for clues that could link the fire to a suspect, and surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and forensic evidence would eventually lead them to the prime suspect. As investigators arrived at the scene, it quickly became apparent that this was no accident. The fire had been set intentionally, with evidence of accelerants found in multiple locations around the building, including key points such as the stairwells and the courtyard. A single piece of evidence would reveal the shocking identity of the person responsible. It was clear that the fire had been strategically set to trap residents inside, making escape nearly impossible. Witnesses reported hearing what they believed to be gunshots just before the fire started, adding another layer of suspicion to what was already a devastating tragedy. But the most unsettling discovery was still to come.
Brad Cummings was the editor of the Austin Voice. Founded in 1985, he gave power to the powerless here on Chicago's West Side, a community's force now gone amid the influence.
He lived and breathed the Austin community.
Each word in the Austin Voice.
Brad has covered so many of our stories.
Highlights the people who often feel forgotten about on the city's west side.
He sees a neighborhood that has some great community stakeholders and who are going against the odds.
That voice now forever silenced. The paper's editor, Brad Cummings, was in a Thursday morning fire that's being investigated as possible arson. 37-year-old Alderwoman Emma Mitt says were allegedly fired before the blaze was intentionally set following a domestic dispute.
The community heard gunshots, and after that, the Martech cocktail bombs was thrown in. Front and back blew the back porch off, so they couldn't come out the back.
Mitz says the 76-year-old's body was found huddled in his bathroom, and one day after the blaze.
I wasn't leaving from this, from their home until they broke out.
Crews on Friday found a fourth victim. Family and close friends watching with broken hearts as Destiny Henry's body was pulled from the wreckage. Loved ones say she rushed back into the burning apartment to find her son, who, unknown to her, had already made it out.
I just want to say Destiny went out strong. She didn't die in vain.
Regina Henry, who we're told was pregnant, and her 5-year-old son Jason also among those. 4 lives lost as one man's decades-long work now hangs in the balance.
He may be gone, but we still are committed to saving the paper.
And at this time, police would not say if they're looking for someone in connection to this fire.
Oh, Cheryl and Mark, police have had very little to say about their ongoing investigation into this fire as they are trying to conclude or determine if it indeed is an act of arson. They have not said, though, if they're looking for any suspects. Meanwhile, a family, as you mentioned, and learned today that they have lost yet another relative to the flames.
I just want to say, Destiny, I tried. I tried to go. I tried. I tried. I can't do this. I just want to say Destiny went out strong. She didn't die in vain.
The fire was determined to be arson, and investigators began piecing together the timeline of events that led to the catastrophic blaze. Surveillance footage from cameras located outside and in some hallways of the building provided valuable insight into the movements of people around the time of the fire. Soon they would uncover a chilling connection that tied it all together. The evidence gathered would later reveal that the fire had been deliberately set as part of a personal vendetta, escalating into a violent act that took the lives of several innocent people. The police investigation was just beginning, and the community was left grappling with questions about who would do such a thing and why. In the days following the fire, the community of Austin rallied around the families of the victims, offering condolences, support, and a sense of solidarity. However, the residents of the apartment building were also left to contend with the harsh realities of their loss.
Was an emotional time for many attending today's vigil. Loved ones who have barely left the side of some of the survivors of that deadly fire, including a 5-year-old boy who is still hospitalized here at Stroger, unaware his mother is gone.
We release these balloons now. Let them go.
Tears flowed freely at today's vigil as the loved ones of 4 people in last Thursday's West Side fire came together, joined by elected officials and faith leaders, continuing to mourn the loss of sisters Destiny and Gina Brown Henry, Gina's young son Jason, and Brad Cummings, a longtime editor for Austin's The Voice newspapers.
We knew we had a voice in our community. We knew that we would be seen in that paper.
The fire, which is being investigated as an act of arson, left dozens homeless. Even as the flames raged, trapped residents jumped to escape the 3-story building. One resident throwing 5-year-old Kyle Lee Jr. out before jumping himself. Kyle's mother is among the.
I want to say to Destiny that I promise I have your baby boy. I have not left his side. This is my first time being away from the hospital since it happened.
The little boy, we're told, is still in critical condition.
He opened his eyes for the first time yesterday, and he looked at me and he dropped a tear. And he is in so much pain, but he is so strong.
But even as he and his grandmother remain hospitalized, the investigation into who set the fire continues.
The monster who did this has got to be dealt with. We're going to work with the police. We're going to do all that we can.
A $5,000 reward is now being offered by the Leaders Network for any information that leads to an arrest and a conviction in this case.
The absence of a father, a sister, a mother, and a young child who had been an integral part of their lives. As they mourned, the investigation pressed forward, revealing new pieces of the puzzle. Investigators discovered that the fire had been started with accelerants, specifically gasoline, which had been strategically placed to maximize damage and block escape routes. Surveillance footage captured a male individual, later identified as 23-year-old Lontrell Clark, carrying a red plastic container believed to contain gasoline and wearing dark clothing. But what came next would shock everyone, revealing the motive behind such a horrific act. Further digital evidence, including phone records and GPS tracking, placed Lontrell near the apartment building during the time of the fire. But it wasn't just the evidence that pointed to Lontrell, it was his rage-driven motive that would take this case to a whole new level of complexity. Text messages and social media posts also revealed a clear motive. Lontrell had reportedly become upset after receiving a photo via social media. The image showed his ex-girlfriend, who lived in the building, posing with another man, someone believed to be Lontrell's friend. Little did anyone know this seemingly innocent image would set off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. In a fit of rage, Lontrell allegedly drove to a gas station with his cousin, filled a container with gasoline, and purchased a lighter and a mask before heading to the building. Witnesses later reported hearing gunshots and explosions, and soon the entire community would feel the ripple effect of Lontrell's anger. Lontrell became the primary suspect within 48 hours of the fire. The investigation revealed a clear pattern of premeditated behavior. Lontrell had been enraged after seeing a social media post of his ex-girlfriend with another man, and as detectives followed the evidence, it became clear that Lontrell had carefully planned the attack. After learning about her relationship with his friend, Lontrell allegedly planned and executed the arson with the intent to cause harm. But the real shock came when Lontrell would be on the run. Following the release of his name, Lontrell fled the Chicago area, and law enforcement in coordination with the U.S. Marshals and Illinois State Police tracked him down to Springfield, Illinois. He was arrested on July 9, 2025, after a brief surveillance operation. 23-year-old Lontrell Clark was charged with multiple counts, including first-degree murder, aggravated arson, and attempted murder, among others. He remains in custody while awaiting trial, as prosecutors presented chilling details about the events leading up to the deadly attack, confirming he is a danger to the community. The grief-stricken community of Austin, Chicago rallied together in the aftermath of the devastating fire. For those who knew the victims, Brad, Regina, Destiny, and Jason, the loss was not just personal, it was a community-wide tragedy. Reverend George Smith Jr., a family member of 3 of the victims, voiced the collective pain when he said, "They're a family that's hurting, a family that's sad and in pain."
Lontrell Clark remains behind bars tonight after a Cook County judge determines that he is a danger to the community. Investigators say the 23-year-old became enraged and intentionally set fire to his friend's apartment after learning that that friend may have started dating his ex-girlfriend.
We're sticking close together. It's a day-by-day process.
George Smith says his family can finally begin their journey for justice now that the man accused of starting the fatal fire that claimed the lives of his loved ones heads to court. Prosecutors say 23-year-old Lontrell Clark was angry that his friend and ex-girlfriend were dating, that he allegedly threw a Molotov cocktail into the Austin neighborhood apartment where they were, sparking a fire that killed 4 people, including Smith's pregnant cousin and her young son.
It's an uphill journey, and the journey has not yet begun. The healing has not yet begun. We're a family that's hurting. We're a family that's sad. We're a family that's in pain.
Calling it a horrific crime and a brazen disregard for life, a Cook County judge showed Clark no mercy. Authorities arrested the 23-year-old Chicago man in downstate Springfield on Wednesday. He now faces murder, attempted murder, and aggravated arson charges, along with dozens of additional felony counts.
And as the days passed, the demand for accountability grew louder. As news of the fire spread, residents held memorial services and vigils to honor the lives lost. Community members gathered outside the charred remains of the apartment complex, laying candles, posters, and stuffed animals to remember the victims. Many people wrote messages on balloons, which were released into the air as an act of remembrance for the 4 lives lost. For the community, it was a time of both mourning and calling for justice. But their mourning would soon transform into a movement for change. The Henry family was especially vocal in their quest for answers. They questioned how such a known domestic dispute could escalate into the fatal fire that killed 4 innocent people. Their resolve to seek justice grew stronger with each passing day.
He murdered 4 people, and it was just senseless because of whatever reason or whatever he felt like. He destroyed lives.
Despite their profound grief, their public demands for accountability grew louder, especially after the arrest of Lontrell Clark. The Henry family was determined to ensure that no stone was left unturned in uncovering the full extent of Lontrell's role in the tragedy. Funeral arrangements were an incredibly difficult task for the Henry family, who now had to bury 3 loved ones: Regina, Destiny, and Jason. They were remembered not only as victims, but as symbols of love and sacrifice. Destiny's act of returning to the building to save her son, unaware that he had already been rescued, became a focal point of both sorrow and admiration. Her bravery and sacrifice were honored during the memorial services, where family members described her as a deeply loyal and selfless person who always put others before herself. Regina, 3 months pregnant at the time of her death, was remembered for her nurturing spirit, her role as a mother, and her unwavering dedication to her family. Her 5-year-old son, Jason, whose life was tragically cut short, was also mourned as a bright light that never had a chance to grow up. Brad Cummings, whose death was a heavy blow to the community, was also laid at rest with full honors. As the editor of The Voice, Brad had spent his life advocating for the community. He was a stalwart figure in the fight for social justice on Chicago's West Side, and his death was seen as a loss not only for his family, but for all of Austin. As the trial continues, the hope for the victims' families is clear. They want justice. For the survivors of the fire, the journey towards healing is long and filled with pain. For the Henry family, the pain of losing a mother, a sister, and a child is immeasurable. For the community of Austin, the fire is a stark reminder of the deep flaws in both the criminal justice system and public safety systems. The families of the victims have called for more than just accountability in the courtroom. They want systemic changes that could prevent something like this from ever happening again. From tougher domestic violence laws to more rigorous fire safety regulations, the tragedy has sparked a movement that seeks to make the world safer for others. As we follow the trial's developments, we encourage you to reflect on the story and the important lessons it offers. Can we do more to prevent domestic violence and improve safety in our communities? What steps should be taken to ensure that such tragedies don't continue? As this case continues to unfold, many questions still remain unanswered. Was there more to the dispute that led to the fire than what we currently know? Did Lontrell act alone, or was there a secondary accomplice? The community continues to ask whether anyone had prior knowledge of Clark's plans, and if so, whether there could have been an intervention to prevent the tragedy. Could early warnings have been heeded? Could this fire have been stopped before it turned fatal? The community of Austin is now grappling with bigger questions about public safety and the failures of the systems in place to protect residents. The fire exposed significant weaknesses in the building's infrastructure, including the lack of fire suppression systems like sprinklers and alarms. This tragedy also raises critical concerns about domestic violence prevention. Could this horrific event have been avoided if there had been more effective intervention in Clark's toxic relationship? For now, the family and the community demand justice. They seek answers about how such a tragic event could have been prevented and whether the justice system is equipped to address the full scale of this loss. My deepest condolences to each of you during this heartbreaking time. May the memories of your loved one bring you peace in the days ahead. What do you think about it? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.